Mr. Ahmad, a well-known business owner, was recently punished by LSDM for failing to report all his revenue to the organisation. Mr. Ahmad, who has numerous homes and other open positions, was penalised by LSDM when it was discovered that he had failed to disclose the 200,000 in income from an investment. Mr. Ahmad's fine for taxation is 60,000. To assist him in carrying out his responsibility, Mr. Ahmad contacts an IRB officer right away for an
Mr. Ahmad, as a taxpayer, has several key responsibilities. Firstly, he must file his returns accurate and on time each year, declaring his income and deduction to the relevant tax authority. Secondly, Mr. Ahmad is obligated to pay all tax he or property, including income tax, sales tax, property tax, and other, with potential penalty for the late payments. Thirdly, maintaining true records of his earning, expenses, credit, and receipt is currencies to sustain his return in case of an audit. Lastly, Mr. Ahmad needs to stay informed about tax, law, and regulation applicable to his jurisdiction, ensuring compliance and maximize available credits, deduction, and tax benefits.
Alright, we're moving on to the self-assessment system. For the first step is understanding self-assessment system. Alright, self-assessment means that taxpayer is required by law that will assume to bear the primary duty to revise his tax, compute his income tax liability, and account for his tax payable in the current year as well. The second step is register with the Inland Revenue Board, which is LHDN. Mr. Ahmad not be the first time in submitting her chargeable income tax and expenditure to LHDNs. The LHDNs will assign the taxpayer identification number, which is TIN, to the Mr. Ahmad, as he is a person who is accessible and chargeable to the tax. The third step is responsibility to keep documentation. Under Section 82 of the Income Tax Act 1967 requires an individual carry on the business to keep and retain in the safe custody sufficient records for a period of 7 years from the end of the relevant years in the relation to the business income.
Summary for the step 4R, Mr. Ahmad needs to obtain the form from the Inland Revenue Board and national or nearby office. The form requires accurate personal details such as full name, address, and taxpayer identification number TIN. It must be complete correctly and submit before the deadline. Summary for the step 5R, Mr. Ahmad needs to disclose all sources of income, which include earning from the side businesses, investment, multiple properties, the city centre and a vacation home, a high-end sport car, and frequent international travels for business purposes. It is crucial that Mr. Ahmad accurately declare all these sources of income. Summary for the step 6R, Mr. Ahmad needs to identify eligible expenses and allowance for tax relief, as well as any applicable tax credits. He must ensure that the information he provides align with his document, such as keeping receipts of transaction properly organized.
Step 7. Submit the income tax revenue. Mr. Ahmad must follow Inland Revenue Board instructions for filling his income tax return forms, including accrued income, deducts, and tax credit, and signing a date form to avoid the penalties. Step 8. Submit the income tax returns. Mr. Ahmad must follow the Inland Revenue Board's instruction recently to file his income tax return. He needs to accurately fill out the forms detailing income, deductions, and tax credits, and ensure all supporting documents are attached. Afterward, he should sign and date the certify its accuracy. Step 9. Payment of tax. Mr. Ahmad must settle his tax liability by calculating his taxable income and using the relevant tax rate, meeting the deadline to avoid the penalties, and ensure compliance with rules.
Next, for step 10 is Mr. Ahmad should return records all his income. And then, all business expenses invoices must be kept for audit purposes. Other than that, use separate bank account for business transaction and keep backups so all data would not be lost. For the last step is Mr. Ahmad should review and update his financial to maintain compliance with tax regulations, so that Mr. Ahmad can identify any potential issues and avoid potential tax authorities related complications.
For return and assessment. For returns in Malaysia, Mr. Ahmad must determine his chargeable income, taxable and debt owed. Mr. Ahmad with an annual income of 500,000 and multiple properties must submit financial information and self-compute tax deducts by June 30 for business income. Mr. Ahmad can complete his tax return electronically using an online e-filing form. He authorized a tax agent to submit the return and the acknowledgement from the DG determines submissions. His agent is authorized to provide accurate information. The tax agent must verify Mr. Ahmad's return preparations, sign a hard copy and keep both for 7 years. If the deadline fall on a weekend or public holiday, the following working day is considered is due. Also, Mr. Ahmad can use My Tax to access information like changing ledger transaction, refund status, and monthly tax deduct. It simplifies forward password access, allow e-filing of income tax return, hasil tax payment, and tax profile update. The platform also offers a personal dashboard and mailbox. For assessment, Mr. Ahmad has submitted a tax return to DG, who may accept or reject it based on his judgment, indicating the amount of tax payable. Mr. Ahmad is liable for a penalty due to his failure to submit the return based on the original assessment, despite not diligent all business income. The DG may arise additional assessment due to Mr. Ahmad's omission of income during the internal assessment, potential resulting in additional tax refunds and incorrect tax refund.
Next, for the amendment of tax return following step by step. First, Mr. Ahmad must accessing the SAS system by logging to LHDN web portal. Second, he must selecting the appropriate assessment year, which the year he obtained the unreported income. Next, initiating the amendment to amend his tax return on the SAS website. And then, filling out the amended return during the audit. For the next step, adjusting deductions and exemptions that apply to the additional income he is claiming. Move to the next step, calculating all Mr. Ahmad's additional tax payable based on the data collection. And then, submitting the amended return once all his informations are confirmed. Next, payment of additional tax that Mr. Ahmad's owed as soon as possible. For the second last, returning documentation for the updated return. Lastly, for the future compliance, to ensure that all of Mr. Ahmad's earnings are declared accurately and on time.
Alright, next, we're moving on to the offense and penalties. For the first offense is failure to file a tax return and give notice chargeability. Under Section 112 Subsection 1 of the Income Tax Act 1967, Mr. Ahmad fails to furnish a tax return as required by law. Mr. Ahmad may be liable to penalties ranging from 200 until 2,000 and imprisonment for a term not exceeding 6 months or a combination of both. The second offense is incorrect tax return by omitting or understating any income. This is provides under Section 113 Clause 1 Subclause A. In this case, Mr. Ahmad provides incorrect tax return by understating her income. Mr. Ahmad claiming a lower amount, which is RM300,000 than what Mr. Ahmad generally earned, which is RM500,000. Mr. Ahmad shall be guilty for a fine RM1,000 until 10,000 and double the undercharged tax income. The third one is misreporting how much earned. Under Section 113 Clause 1 Subclause B, that provides incorrect information on matters affecting chargeability to tax. Mr. Ahmad misrepresenting her income and claiming a lower amount, which is RM300,000 than what Mr. Ahmad generally earned, which is 500,000, can lead to unfairly reducing her tax liability. However, this actions carries the risk of fines and ranging from RM1,000 until 10,000. Additionally, Mr. Ahmad will be required to pay 2 times of the tax undercharged amount that was incorrectly reported. For the last offense is willful evasion. Mr. Ahmad has not been diligent in declaring all his income to LHDN. Furthermore, Mr. Ahmad also not declared RM200,000 of his income, which is he had earned through various side business and investment. Under Section 114 Clause 1, Mr. Ahmad willfully and with intent to evade tax shall be guilty to a fine of not less than 1,000 until 20,000 or 2 imprisonment for term not exceeding 3 years or both. Mr. Ahmad also shall pay a special penalty of triple the amount of tax which has been undercharged.
If a taxpayer is dissatisfied with the income tax assessment, believe that personal relief have not been granted adequately, and forgotten to claim certain relief or expenses, believe that an error was made during the assessment of a process, they may submit an income tax appeal with the IRMBM office. The appealment can occur in test steps. Step 1. A person who appeals has to submit 4 copies of a Form Q for each year of assessment and must ensure that at least 1 copy is an original Form Q, whereas the other 3 copies may be photocopied. Step 2. A Form Q and attachment submitted by the applicant must not be attached with the other document. A completed Form Q with the ground of appeal must be submitted to the IRMB department or hasil office handling the appellant income tax file or which raise the relevant assessment. Step 3. A complete Form Q must contain following information: date and amount of the tax payable according to the tax payable, refer to the notice of assessment in the dispute. Other latest ground of appeal containing other particulars as may be required by the form. Step 4. A Form Q must be signed by the appellant who chargeable to tax. Only the appellant can sign the form, not a tax agent or a lawyer. An incomplete Form Q shall be written to the appellant.